You are listening to the Prosperous Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosperous Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Hi, Greg McCollum here with another edition of Prosperous Law Podcast. At Prosperous Law, we show lawyers, specifically criminal defense lawyers, how to turn their chaotic, stressful law practice into something that gives them more free time, more money, and peace of mind. That's really what we're all about. That's really what we do. That's really what I have done in my life. And it wasn't easy. It took some time. It's not something that I can show you how to do in 90 days. It's not something that you can download my program and then instantly have this life. There's more to it than that. You can have growth in your law firm. If you want to have a criminal defense only practice and you want to grow to 7 figures and beyond, if you want to start growing at 20% a year or 30% a year, 40% a year, maybe higher depending on the situation that you're in and how effective you are and how good you are at actually changing and implementing, we show you how to do that. Prosperous Law shows you how to do that. This podcast is a part of that. Now, this is a continuation of the last episode where I talked about the 9 things that I believe are necessary if you're going to transform your life and transform your law firm into something that serves you personally and professionally, something that gives you what you should get from it, gives you a better life, gives you more money and more free time, then this is the 9 elements that I believe are necessary. They're certainly the 9 things that I had to learn and grow into in order to do it. And I'll call these the necessary 9. So these are the necessary 9 things. Now, this is not to be confused with the plan and the steps. These are not steps. These are things that exist in all of us. I believe all of us, almost all of us. There probably are some people that were not raised or reared in an environment where these things were put into us for reasons of safety and comfort. And there probably are some people out there. I've heard that people that are, because of their parents, because of their environment, because of the success culture that they were literally born into, that they don't have these hang-ups and limitations. So if you're listening to this, though, you're probably more like almost everyone else, where you do have these things that you deal with and these beliefs and this lack of understanding about what it takes to grow. And before your business can really grow and before you can really get that propulsion and blast off and go into something great or extraordinary, personal growth precedes professional business growth. You have to become the person that understands this and can do this. And basically, you're having to overcome your own limitations. So this is the personal growth part of it that I'm talking about here, the necessary 9. And just as a quick recap, the necessary 9 are vision, humility, mentors, teachers, investment, spending money, learning your quit point, addressing and understanding your fears, your discomfort, your failure and ability to understand failure and how failure leads to success, and then persistence and being persistent. So in the last episode, I've talked about the first 5. The last thing we talked about, or I explained, is your quit point, which is very important. Most people have it. I certainly had it. Do I still have it? It still comes up. I still think about it. But based on what I've learned from people that were willing to teach me, and based on my humility and ability and willingness to learn it, it's not that significant anymore. Do I still have doubts and fears? Yes. Fear is something that I'll talk about now. Fear. What is fear? I remember being in a seminar, which was really, it was a growth seminar. It was, and there weren't many people in the room, and we had an outstanding teacher. And I think that was one of my mentors, David Neagle, who was an extraordinary teacher. And if you've never listened to any of his podcasts or read his book, The Millions Within, I would recommend it, because he was instrumental in me learning and getting through and growing through this stuff. And I did pretty extensive work with him and spent a lot of money learning this and going to intensive type of trainings with him, where it's all about the psychology and the subconscious mind, and why we do what we do, why we're afraid to do things that we want to do. And that's simply the comfort and discomfort, and then the presence of fear. And I remember when I would be in the room, because we would have an opportunity where we would get to go to a microphone. And so there are 25 people in the room. There's a short line at the microphone. And so when you have a thought, you go get in line and you ask him the question. And that's called laser coaching, where you're sitting there talking to the person and asking the question and dealing with this subconscious fear. And I remember when I would do it, and this is really pretty strange for me to explain this, when I was doing it, when I was in the room, and it was basically therapy, and I would ask the question, and then he would ask me a question, and I think I stopped talking. And I don't know how long, but this happened multiple times, where he would ask the question, and can you answer it? And as I was searching my mind and my thoughts and dealing with this subconscious and probably emotion and probably physiological emotional responses I was having, it would be like a cloud had enveloped me. So I'm in a cloud. I can't think. I almost can't hear that there are other people talking, because I'm physically and emotionally and mentally going through this fog. And it's hard to describe, but it's something that I did a number of times. And I remember, because I had so much fear of I should do this or not do that. And he told me, he said, fear will not go away. You hear the term conquer fear, but I don't think, and it certainly hasn't been my experience, that I can conquer fear. I haven't conquered fear. Fear seems unconquerable. And he explained to me, just give your fear a name and animate it and recognize it and realize And I think he said that like fear is right here. It's like the angel voice and devil voice. So fear is right here with you. It's right there with me, just sitting like on my shoulder, trying to stop me. And he said, just take fear with you. Just take fear with you. Just he's coming with you. Fear's coming with you. And then over time, what happens is fear tries everything to stop me. And fear gets weaker and weaker and weaker, because that's my subconscious mind trying to stop me, trying everything in the world to stop me, giving me every reason to quit. And at some point, my subconscious mind says, he just won't listen. He won't listen. We're throwing everything at him, throwing the kitchen sink, every obstacle, every problem that can happen in his life is happening, and he just won't quit. He just won't quit. And so what happens, or what was explained to me would happen, which did happen, is that at some point, my fear almost quits trying. That he's still there, he's still trying to stop me, but he's just getting weaker and he's getting frustrated. And so my subconscious just stops throwing up these obstacles and stops raising these obstacles and starts bringing this stuff up, because I just won't let it stop me. And fear starts to become weaker and weaker. And as I explain this, I'm thinking, you may just think I'm crazy, right? And you may have turned the podcast off and said, who is this guy and what the hell is he talking about? But that's been my experience. So fear is there to keep you alive. As we, went through the progression of civilization, where we're living literally in caves or around campfires, the fears developed. In other words, I think that you're born with two fears: a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. And those are just things that are in your DNA. Everything else is learned. Everything else was taught to you. And it was taught to you to keep you alive. In other words, don't wander around in the dark, because there's a saber-toothed tiger out there that will eat you. So your civilization, your society, your family, your tribe tells you, don't leave the campfire at night, don't go out in the dark. That's learned. Every other fear, don't take a chance, don't risk this, it's learned. You learned it from people that cared the most about you to keep you safe. And in modern society, we just don't need all those fears, because that's not really happening. And I'm not talking about going into a crime area and being foolish. That's fear serves a purpose. But in terms of if I borrow this money to do this, or if I spend this money to do this, or if I try to do something that doesn't work, that failure will not kill you like wandering away from the campfire. But your fear in your subconscious, the end result of every failure is that you will die. Now, you don't think in your conscious mind that you're going to die, but that's what your subconscious is pressing upon you. That's why it has the effect it has on you, is because the end result of every risk that fear is trying to stop you is that you will die. Well, you will not die, okay? If you jump off a skyscraper, you will die, okay? If you hear a loud noise, you will not die. If you just got in a car crash and you heard that, you might die. But for all these other fears, they're learned, and you learn them to keep you safe, which will keep you safe, but will also keep you from ever accomplishing anything. The next thing I'll talk about, which is extremely close to this whole concept, is comfort. Comfort is your enemy. Choosing comfort over calculated risks is your enemy. If you don't do something because you're uncomfortable, it stops you, and that's your quit point. I can't be this uncomfortable. But discomfort also, like fear, becomes manageable as you become comfortable being uncomfortable. Once you understand that your fear and your worry and your discomfort, and this doesn't feel good, this is scary, I don't want to do this may not work, it's not going to work, so why would I even try it? That's just retreating to comfort. And that's where most people go. That's where most people that you know want you to go. That's what we all want. And we live in this amazing country and this amazing society where if somebody is uncomfortable for just a small period of time, they're so disturbed or outraged by it. If you look at an example, for instance, I was just flying back from Florida, and I think there was a problem with the plane, so it was delayed, and it was being delayed another hour, every hour, and I ended up switching to another airline because I was trying to get home that night, and it wasn't working. And if you watch people in an airport, now they cancel the flight so they won't kill you. You know, they don't fly into the thunderstorms. I had to get back and connect through Atlanta because I live in Myrtle Beach. And so the pilot came on and said they have a ground stop in Atlanta because there's a thunderstorm sitting over Atlanta. They may lift it if we're going to go ahead and taxi out, because I think they're going to lift it, and then we'll be number one for takeoff, and then we'll get there and maybe we'll make your connections. But if you look at how people react, you know, in the airport setting, people do not accept that discomfort. They don't accept that as part of life, and they don't want to be uncomfortable. When someone goes to a show or a football game or sporting event or rides in an airplane is uncomfortable, we just complain about it because we're so unaccustomed to being uncomfortable. But then we admire people like Navy SEALs who sit in freezing water for a period of time, who run these trails and push their bodies beyond belief. They're so uncomfortable, yet we admire that. We admire that. But then in our own lives, unless you're somebody who does those cold ice plunge baths or something like that, we just want to be comfortable. We want our food hot, ready, served to us. We don't want to wait for somebody to refill our drink. We don't want to wait in line to see a show or get in a restaurant. We don't want a table where somebody's aggravating us. We just want comfort. Our whole goal in life that we've learned is to always be comfortable, where we have the cushy sofa and the thing to prop our feet up on, and then our beverages and our favorite game or our favorite show, or the visuals are perfect and the sound is perfect because we've got the 75-inch flat screen television with a sound bar. It's all comfort. We just crave comfort. So it's no wonder that you don't have a large part of the population going out and doing something significant, maybe doing something great, maybe doing something extraordinary, because it's so uncomfortable. So one of the necessary 9 is to embrace discomfort, to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And then the next part of the necessary 9 is number 8, which is failure. And that's the situation where we think if we fail, we're going to die. We're not going to die. We're going to fail. People are going to see us fail. People are going to think less of us. People are going to call us a failure. people are going to say, I knew that wouldn't work. Look at all the time and money you wasted on that. So then we feel like we're stupid. Who do we think we were? That wasn't going to work. I should have listened to everybody trying to keep me comfortable. That was failure set in motion. It was never going to work. You have to embrace that. If you're going to exceed, if you're going to do something great, significant, or even extraordinary, you have to embrace that failure and understand that anything you do comes with the risk of failure. Anything significant that you do. And everybody that you read about, everybody that is the billionaires of the world and the people like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and all of these people, presidential candidates, people that hold, the governor, people that run for office, even somebody that runs, for city council, they're uncomfortable. They go through discomfort to try to do something better. And so that's a significant part of that. You cannot ever find certainty when you're trying to do something. You can look at it as that, and you have to weigh the risk. I'm not saying you just try anything. You have to weigh the risk. Is this something that, and you don't want to bet the farm on some big, great idea. In case it doesn't work, you lose everything. You calculate the risk. You look at it and say, if I do this, regardless of what it is, what's the best outcome? What's the worst outcome? In other words, what's the greatest thing in the world that could happen if this works? What's the worst thing that could possibly happen? If it doesn't work, maybe you lost some time, maybe you lost some money. It can't be a bankruptcy risk because that puts you so far back. So you calculate these risks. You're equipped to do it. So what's the best possible outcome? What's the worst possible outcome? And what's the most likely outcome? You're probably going to get the most likely outcome. You may get the worst outcome, and that's failure. So you have to embrace that failure. And when that failure comes and happens, because if you try something, it's going to happen. If you decide, all right, today I'm going to become a runner, and I'm going to go out and run 5 miles, you probably can't, okay? So you run half a mile or 3/4 of a mile, and you can't go any further. What is that? That's failure. That's failure. Embrace that. Accept that. Try to do it again. If you ran for 3/4 of a mile, you probably can do it again. And then you do it a third time, and you probably can get to a mile. Now, you were going to run 5, but if you go back and add up the 3/4, and then you get to a mile, and you've done this about 6 or 7 times, then you ran 5 miles. You just didn't do it all in one session. So you still accomplished it. You didn't fail, even though it seems like failure. You have to take some risks. You have to accept failure. You have to embrace failure. Sometimes failure is your greatest lesson. If you open up and listen to people who are successful, people who are hyper successful, they'll talk about this in certain settings, although most people don't want to hear it. Most people want to hear about their success. And then when they hear about their success, they say, well, that's them. They're different from me. They're not different from you. They just learned to embrace failure and to take risks. Number 9 of the necessary 9, and this is closely related to the quit point, and that's persistence. Persistence is more important than everything. It's more important than your physical body. It's more important than your health. in terms of overcoming something. I'm not saying health is not important. It's very important. And if you have a debilitating illness, I don't know if you can do it, though some people have. But to be persistent, and that is to keep trying, embrace failure, keep trying it, don't quit, excuse me, keep going. Everyone tells you you're crazy. No one believes in you. Keep trying. Be determined. You have to be determined because it's not easy. It's not simply, nothing's just, success isn't just going to fall in your lap. It doesn't fall in anyone's lap. The greatest actors, singers, business people, nothing fell in their lap. They were persistent, and they kept trying. So then what happens if you have the necessary 9? If you develop the necessary 9, then at some point you wake up and you look around and you say, I almost have it too good. I almost feel like I'm not working. Life should be harder than it is. I have a thriving business. Everyone leaves me alone. I have very solvable problems, but my law firm isn't really creating any problems because we've developed the systems and processes and people and A players to where it's just running. It's like McDonald's. They get the hamburgers out. They open up, it just happens. And you reach a point to where you just almost can't believe it that after years of struggle, years of failure, years of not quitting, years of making mistakes, years of learning, years of trying this that didn't work. And I've tried so many things, I can't even remember everything that failed. I wish I'd made a list. I may have a list somewhere of everything that I did, that I spent money on, I signed up contracts for, I did this, and it just didn't work. But then every now and then, something did work. And so now I kept doing it. And then 3 things didn't work. And I lost money. And I was a fool. I should have never signed up for that. I should have never tried that. Then I find something, oh, that did work. Then I find something else, that did work. And the things that work keep working, and they start stacking up and expanding to where now so many things work. So many things that I built and developed and grew into work to where I still look at my life and think, how can this succeed? How can I be doing this and not working that hard? How is this possible? How did this happen? But it will happen. It did happen. It happened for me. It continues to happen. The necessary 9 that I believe are essential to growing into the person that you have to be if you're going to propel your law firm into something that serves you personally, professionally, who gives you more free time, less stress, less worry, and more money to live the life you want to live. Those are the necessary 9. So thank you for listening. See you next time. If you want to know more, go to prosperitlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.